that take quorum away?
Good. So,
Well, let's just get on with it, shall we?
you're done. The meeting's now open. Go ahead.
Okay, we're good to go. All right, well, I welcome everyone to the Huron County Economic Development Board meeting on Thursday, November 7th. Thanks everybody for coming. I have an opening statement. Economic Development Board meetings are available live through Zoom, and recordings may be posted online on the County of Huron's YouTube channel. You may be seen and or heard as part of these broadcasts, and your name, comments, and or presentation materials will become part of the public record. So we're going to say that at every meeting just to warn people. So
Inform.
that's pretty subtle. So approval for the agenda. Everybody have a look at the agenda that was circulated. Can I have a mover and a seconder then for it? Tina and Password and Ginn. Any more discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Very good. Declaration of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Anybody have anything that they might have a conflict with that's on the agenda? None noted. Moving then on to 4, meeting of the previous minutes. Did everybody have a look at them as circulated? Any errors, omissions, questions, comments? Can I have a mover and a seconder then for that? Warden Neal, seconder, Password and Ginn. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. So moving right along, we have no presentations, delegations, 6 opening comments. So there's a couple things that I want to mention. One is kind of disappointing, but this is Jason Al's last meeting.
Last supper.
I know some.
Done at 12 Apostles.
Jason, on behalf of the board and the county, I want to thank you for time you spent on the board and
Oh, well, you don't have to give
all
me
that you've.
It's too much. Thanks so much.
Yes.
It's been a pleasure working with everybody. Has been.
Appreciate having you here and your
Place.
insight and comments and yeah.
I just thought it'd be nice to open up for some new people. You know what I mean? I'd still like to keep in contact with everybody here.
Great.
And even with Chris, if you ever see anybody that needs anything, I'm only a phone call or email away. So I'm like a good dog. I come when he's called. Most days.
We'll process that.
Don't say that. Anyway, thank you very much.
Pleasure. Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Jason.
The other thing that we had down here is a holiday guide, actually, that is going to come out on November the 12th. We've been careful to make sure we release it after Remembrance Day out of obvious respect, and I think that's only fair that we do that. We expect it of ourselves. So, but I'm going to turn it over to Vicky because she has a few comments.
So I just wanted to, the holiday guide right now is being printed. And we also do an online version, but I wanted to show you what we've done in 22 and 23, so you have a sense. And we go through, this one is a labor of love for Alicia. She does an amazing job because it takes so much work to get the volunteer groups to answer. But we list all the Santa Claus parades, all the seasonal light displays, all the holiday markets and shopping, and any celebrations and events like concerts. So this has been the format for the last 2 years in the print version. This year we're going to a smaller, more brochure type print. It's less expensive actually than this version. And then we do as the chair Vincent said, we do release it the day after Remembrance Day intentionally. Unfortunately, that gives a short turn around for some of the early events. There are events this weekend that are in the brochure because it's a heads up to remember that they're next year. So they aren't in the printed version, but they are online. And for those events that happen before the 12th, when we release, we do boost their posts. We do put them in our stories on social media. So we still do represent them. But we've made the conscious decision that the veterans should have their day, and then we release after that. And then once it's printed, it's solid, but if there's any new additions that we haven't been able to track down, or if you know of things going on in your community that aren't represented, we can easily add them to the online version, and then we continue to promote. So in addition to that, when we actually, Tina twigged me to letting you know about the holiday guide, and then it occurred to me I wasn't sure if you know everything we publish. I know that we show you the visitor's guide, we showed you the annual report. So we're doing a bit of a show and tell for you today. And in front of you are some of our tourism publications. One of the ones that are least familiar with is the Vine and Ale Trail. So this is just a tear off a pad type one pager, gives you the map on the back with all of our wineries, breweries, and our summary. And then on the front, it gives a little representation. We also have the hiking guide, which we updated this year. The dining guide is due to be updated next year. And of course, every year we do an Ontario's West Coast Visitors Guide. We also do a number of other publications, but we don't necessarily have a lot of copies of them. So they're on display in the foyer if you want to take a look at some of the other things that we publish. And then there are some things that we are out of stock with. So we do a lot of communication. One of the things we found this year that was really fun is as we were doing our workforce project and people were aware that we were available, we had resources to assist with workforce attraction. We got so many requests for this publication. The school board in particular, I think, took over 50.
Wow.
And only that many because we didn't have any more. Because they take them when they're recruiting and they give them to people and say, here's the lifestyle in Huron County. So we're actually going to increase the number we print next year to be able to support those workforce demands and recruitment demands for people. So although we question whether people use print copies, they do. Mm-hmm. They really do. And they like picking them up. They like when they have a good feel, a nice look. We intentionally don't put advertising in this publication, so it looks even better and the messages aren't confused. And then, of course, we support all of our publications online as well. So when we were talking about the holiday guide, we thought we'd do a quick overview, quick show and tell, and let you know some of the other publications are out on the table. So we publish a lot through the Immigration Partnership. We do a lot of translation, so that some of our publications are done in different languages and available online or in print. So we try to attend to those audiences as well. Okay, so just a quick addition to Chairman's.
I'm just wondering where all we distributed this to, and I really like that at the school board. I hadn't even thought of that, but it just piqued I was welcoming a new doctor to Clinton and this week. I mean, we should get that in their hands if it's not there already. Yeah. Is it there?
Yeah. I don't know that the health unit uses it particular, but yeah, we're trying to promote that in the package that we put together for you for one of the last interested parties for the BYC. We had a lot of this material as well because it shows the lifestyle. It describes who Huron County is. And we're making a real effort in our tourism publications to say that, yes, we are beaches, but we're also agriculture and we're trails and we're environmentalists. And so some of the messaging has been leave your high heels and sequins at home because we're an out and about in the environment and we value that. And that would also be key messaging to businesses who are coming and looking to relocate and bring staff, but it's also really important for people who are recruiting staff. So our publications, as I've always said, tourism is a gateway to residency, but our tourism publications can be used in many ways. And we're starting to see that request. So yes, the message is getting out that we can assist with that.
Any more comments, questions?
I think it's fabulous. So at the Garden Center, we have a display like this tacked up on the wall and then these beside them. And once people see this, they, oh, this is great. It's so beautiful. And so they really, really enjoy it. I think it's fabulous.
Our team has, Rick and Ali have done a beautiful job in the visitors guides. And I don't know if you've noticed, but behind Ruth's desk, we put a history of the visitors guides. And so you can see the evolution of the cover. And across the very top on the right-hand side are the most recent covers. And this coming year, we're doing a real effort to again focus on agriculture as well as our tourism amenities. And so we have things like a tractor on the beach with farmers, and we name the farm family. We have a farm family fishing. We have a farm family. We have two farm families out for dinner for the dining page. But we're naming the farmers and what they do. So we're really trying to mesh. This is who we are. We are agriculture, and we have beaches, and where environment's important. Jason.
I know I go down to Ipperwash Beach and they launch the boats with the tractors there. And I just love to sit and watch. It just brings out my inner child. I don't know if they do that up this way or not, but anytime I'll just stop and watch. I love it. It's so beautiful, you know?
Yeah. So our team has really made an effort this year to mesh the beaches with agriculture. And then we're hoping to do a project where we put signage on beaches. We're going to apply for funding for it, put signage on beaches to draw people into the county, to visit our historic downtowns, to do our vine and ale trail, to visit our farm gates and things like that. So we're continuing with that as well. Sorry, I went way off topic and we have a deadline.
Well, I think it's incredible when you look at the amount of brochures that the department is putting out in support of Huron County. Like I walk into a store and you see one and you think you came from the county. It's like, I haven't even seen that one before. You know, to me, it's amazing. It's great to have it out there, and it is a resource for employers. I mean, even when we were at the Nuclear Institute, they talked about drawing people in as employees and using, the trail system, the lakes, the hiking, we're selling, we've got something to sell that other people cannot sell.
Absolutely do.
So, we gotta take advantage of that. So thank you.
Thank you. Tom?
Moving on then to board member comments. One we had prepped down here was to have our warden go through the Western Ontario Wardens Caucus as an overview. Knowing that CAO work, I guess, has been involved for how many years now as, would you say secretary?
Yes,
Following as both of you have been chair?
4 of the 7 years that she has been
Wow.
CAO, she's also been secretary of the
Good
Western.
for her. Anyway, she's not here, but I mean, that's awesome that.
That's why she needs holidays.
One of the
Anyway, I'll turn it over to the warden, but thanks for sharing.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and for this opportunity to present a little bit of an overview of the Western Ontario Wardens Caucus. And through you, if there's any questions as I go, or please, through you, if I'd be more than happy to address them. And past Warden Ginn is very knowledgeable of everything, as he has been chair of the Western Ontario Wardens Caucus and is currently a chair of a member of the Economic Development Committee too. So Huron's in great shape that way. The Western Ontario Wardens Caucus was formed in approximately 2010. And the initial reason for that was the concept that we're always stronger together. And as opposed to individual counties speaking on behalf of their residents, when you combine all of the counties, and it's approximately 15 counties that the Western Ontario Wardens Caucus represents, and they encompass Oxford County, and their term of warden is 4 years. Chatham and Kent are also members, along with Lambton. Of course, Elgin, Essex, Huron, Bruce, Grey, Simcoe, Wellington, and Brant and Norfolk are single tier, so their mayors are part of the Western Ontario Wardens Caucus. So it's a combination of wardens and mayors. Collectively, the Western Ontario Wardens Caucus represents 300 communities, 117 municipalities, 250,000 businesses, and 1.6 million rural residents. That's the impact that we have. And it was formed for solidarity and speaking for rural residents. And we have developed great relationships with the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus that represents from Toronto East. And when you combine the Western Ontario Wardens Caucus and the amount of residents we represent with the Eastern Ontario Wardens, the voice is much stronger in speaking to the provincial government on many issues. And also we gain a lot of respect at the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, at the AMO board table, when we represent all of the rural residents of Ontario. We're also developing a collaboration with the big city mayors and to collaborate all together because we have the same concerns. And I would suggest one of the initial concerns, of course, would be affordable housing. It's everywhere. It's not just unique to Huron County or to Western Ontario. It's the big cities and also rural Ontario. And homelessness is another issue. At a point in time, it was a city issue, and then it became a town issue, and then it became a rural issue. So we're all addressing that. And if I can speak, and that is one of the priorities of the Western Ontario Wardens Caucus, is addressing homelessness. When we collaborate and have those discussions, some counties or cities will say, yeah, we have a problem. However, we don't have the resources to deal with it. Number one, we don't have the land to build in. And homelessness is something that I will suggest has evolved. And in the way we are addressing it is also has evolved. We originally had what was termed under the cold shelters to provide accommodation that homelessness individuals that find themselves in that situation could be out of the cold. That was a start. We soon learned that that was only a Band-Aid, and we needed to also provide the wraparound professional services to address mental health and addictions. And to do that, it is a process to develop trust. And we need to develop a relationship with those individuals that they can trust us. Because in many instances, they have been in situations when they went indoors, they're violated. So they're afraid to go indoors. And you need to develop that relationship that it's a safe place. It has since evolved that we now realize, and actually I have researched the world, as our staff has, on how to address homelessness. And we now understand that the best solution we know of today is permanent housing. And by that, I mean and we're doing a build in Goderich of affordable rent-geared income and supportive housing for the homeless. When those individuals that are homeless find themselves in that situation, to know that they have a place to live that is warm, out of the elements, and safe is number one. When you remove that anxiety of where am I going to sleep tonight, then you can address through nutrition the abuse that they have had and provide the wraparound services and building those relationships. So that's why we've done the build in Goderich, that is the best way that our staff have researched that we know now to address this situation. And we have successes of moving individuals. We have a build in Exeter, and the homeless will gravitate to a particular area. So there's no use of building something where they're not. You build it where they are and address it. And they will gravitate to different areas throughout the county. And those are the areas that we need to address. And that's why we've done a build in Exeter. And that's why we've done the one in Goderich, and we will have others. Many counties, when we have these discussions at WOWC and AMO, will say, yeah, we should do something. However, we don't have the land to do it. Well, neither did Huron County. And that's why we approached the town of Goderich, and they sold us the land for $1. It was valued at $450,000. And I had a conversation with the mayor of the day, Miles Murdoch, about this situation. And my first conversation was I would like to, on behalf of the county, offer to purchase that land. And I made the momentous offer of $1. He said, "Whoa, I got to think about that." And he said, researched, and he said, "It's worth 450,000." I said, "Yeah, absolutely. That's the assessed value. We understand that. And we would still like to give you $1." And the town of Goderich realized also the benefits of doing something. And that's when I'll come back to collaboration. And that's what Huron County has done. Western Ontario Wardens Caucus, we've collaborated with other entities to solve a situation. And so the town of Goderich sold us the land for $1. We've invested $13 million in it because it's the right thing to do. Not only for today, however, for the future. And areas, whether it's London, we've all been there, Kingston, the encampments they have is a problem. And when you're proactively doing something about it, I'm convinced that is the right approach to mitigate other avenues. So the Western Ontario Wardens Caucus has been very, very strong on that. Workforce is also very important, and that is one of our priorities in proactively addressing what we all need. We know the shortage that many businesses have. So do we need affordable housing? Absolutely. Do we need workforce? Absolutely. Is there a connection there? Probably is. And when we talk about collaboration, the Western Ontario Wardens Caucus has developed a lot of alliances and respect, and one of them is Bruce Power. Bruce Power really values the support of the Western Ontario Wardens Caucus and Huron County. Jim started that when you were chair. I've done my best to continue it on. They really value that. And as a result, with that collaboration, when we go to them with a need, they're there to support us. And that's what it's all about. How WOWC has evolved through the years, there have been, I would suggest, strong wardens that have stepped up to chair WOWC. And I look at George Bridge from Minto, and he was a very strong individual with convictions for the greater good. George Cornell, and then it was Jim as chair for 2 years. And a 2-year chair at WOWC also provides continuity. And then that was carried on by George Cornell in Simcoe. And he reached out to me to ask if I would be his vice chair and then move into chair. And when I asked for the second term of Huron County Council as a warden, that was one of the reasons to do that. And I'm very, very appreciative of the opportunity that Huron County Council gave me to participate at the Western Ontario Wardens level. Just before we started, we talked, and so the process is that the chair of WOWC, the respective county that they come from, the CAO is the secretary for the Western Ontario Wardens Caucus. So CAO Wark has been secretary of WOWC for 4 of the 7 years that she's also been CAO of Huron County. And I am personally very, very indebted, as I know Jim is, also for the support that our CAO has given the chairs, because you can't do it. It's all about collaboration. And when we talk about that, we have great staff. Kate Burns Gallagher is the executive director, a wonderful individual, very task-oriented. And so we contract out some of the clerical work. Charlotte Gravel from Brampton had previously been employed, and her term will be completed at the end of the year. And we're moving to find any efficiencies that we can. So some of that clerical work has been contracted out. Justin Bromberg was formerly involved in government and is our government relations individual. And he is tremendously valuable to the organization because he has a rapport, a relationship with the staff of many of the MPPs throughout Ontario. So when we make delegations, request delegations, many of the ministers are just more than happy to oblige us for a variety of reasons. One is the respect that they have for WOWC because of what Jim and previous chairs have done and all of the caucus. And it was very interesting. I've been involved in many of those delegations. And one that we had at AMO was with Solicitor Kirshner. And he so much values the Western Ontario Wardens Caucus. So when you make the delegation and requests and you have the discussion rapport, and at the end, you get a photo. It's a photo op with the respective ministers. And Solicitor Kirshner, when our presentation was completed, he said, there's going to be something special here today. And in the photo op, he had prepared written comments on his respect of WOWC and what it means to him and the provincial government for us to both present to them and support them. We make requests to them, and we also support the government. And it doesn't matter what government it is. We meet with all of the opposition parties because there will be one day they may be in power. And you build bridges before you need to cross them. And then we will have those discussions. And we have great respect with all of the parties. We also, through the Nuclear Innovation Institute, the WOWC is a member of the Southwestern Isotope Coalition. And again, to have that mutual support and respect, WOWC supports NII as they support us. And when you have that mutual respect, it's amazing what can be accomplished when you don't care who gets the credit. We have great relationships with the ministers, with the premier, and I am told that WOWC has really grown through the years. And of course, everything is a process. And we've now evolved to the point that we're really recognized. And that's the respect that we want. One of the early brainchilds of Western Ontario Wardens Caucus was SWIFT, Southwestern Ontario Infrastructure. And it was established in 2012 because WOWC saw a need for fiber in the future. And so through the process, SWIFT has been recognized as being the provider to work with all of the telecom companies for the installation of fiber. Initially, the provincial government thought, yeah, that's not a big deal. We can do that. Well, it didn't take long before they realized that it was maybe a little more in-depth and detailed than they were capable of doing. And it didn't take long for the provincial and federal governments to look at SWIFT and said, can you do this? And when the response was yes, will you do it on our behalf? And so I would suggest that SWIFT is one of the tremendous assets that WOWC evolved. And the process of fiber installation, we all need it in Ontario. Everyone deserves it. And we were very, very strong in our presentations to the provincial government that Western Ontario, and specifically rural Ontario, should not be disadvantaged because of where we live. Why should someone in a city, the fact they live in Toronto or London or Kitchener, have fiber and our residents not? They recognize that, the equality. And so we had the initial rollout of SWIFT for the installation of fiber. When I come back to Huron County being a leader, it became apparent that we were short in funding to do more in Huron County. So Huron County Council put in $2.3 million for installation of more fiber. And I find it very interesting that when fiber is discussed on a provincial basis and at Western Ontario level, some counties will comment how they just don't have the fiber. And I think to myself, why does Huron County have so much fiber? Because we realized we had to put skin in the game, and we have done that. And recently, there was a communication that we needed to do more for that last mile, the last 5% in Ontario. And the provincial government, when they recognized and realized it was a situation that had to be addressed, came to SWIFT and said, can you do this? Because they were incapable of doing it. And they'd recognized that. And they knew that on SWIFT's track record, how successful it had been. So that's the mutual respect that the government has with WOWC and with SWIFT on that. And, you know, SWIFT is extremely well managed. Barry Field is the executive director for that. And, you know, it's one thing to make agreements with the telecoms for the installation, and then it's also the follow-up. And it has been demonstrated that there are some that bid for contracts and they go like in areas that they're incapable of the installation. And Barry monitored that. He addressed it with the provincial government. This has to be addressed. And the necessary changes are being made to get that fiber installed. So we're not everywhere yet. There's a process. And there's a commitment from the provincial government for the end of 25, 95% will be hooked up to fiber. And it is very important that Western Ontario is not disadvantaged, and especially our rural residents with that. You know, it's not only business, it's youth, their development, education, and the future that they will have in this area. So with that, that's kind of a brief overview of the Western Ontario Wardens Caucus, and I give a lot of credit to Jim for the work that you did there and continue to do, Jim, on behalf of all of the residents far beyond Huron County for Western Ontario and all of Ontario. So I'd be more than happy to respond to any questions or comments that anyone would have.
Well, first off, I'll say you use the word cooperation and collaboration a lot.
Yeah.
And really the WOWC is the catalyst for that cooperation, right? You put people with like interests together. We can't do it individually, but together we can. And it just gives it a little more formality and speeds the process up, I think. The other thing that jumps out at me is so much when you get outside of Huron County, organizations look to people from Huron County to be leaders, to be involved, to chair, to drive. So certainly on behalf of the board, we thank you both for the time you have been on there and represented Huron County well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure, an honor.
Yes.
Yeah, I just make a couple of comments. And the first one was that when I first became warden and sat on the Western Warden Caucus, we were behind Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus. And when I got there, I reached out to them. There was always some communication back and forth, But we had a presentation from a CAO from Eastern Ontario, and they talked about it. And I realized these guys are way ahead of us, right? So I reached out to them, and we started meeting regularly with them. And I would say, since my time, when we were chasing what they were doing, from George Grinnell and Glenn, now we're in the lead. They're looking to us for some leadership, and so credit to both George and Glenn for leaping us ahead. But yeah, the value of speaking with one voice, and when we got presentations from them, like Glenn said, it's the same issues that we're dealing with, right? But when we speak with 2.5 million voices instead of on a county basis or a municipalities basis, much more impactful. And, we're working together with the cities as well in our area. And you start getting a population that actually rivals the GTA. And I've always personally thought that the GTA got way more money than they should get. We need it too. So that's one of the reasons I did that. But it's really grown and taken off since my time there. The other thing I just mentioned about the fiber, and some of the plans that came out early were, let's take fiber to towers and then we'll broadcast over the air. And I always thought that was the dumbest thing in the world, but some people thought, well, we can get higher speeds to more people quicker by doing it this way. And it's like, let's do it right the first time and be done with it. Once you're hooked to fiber, I don't think that technology is going to change for 100 years, right? You can make it faster, but you're using light, so it's the speed of light. You're not going to get any faster than that. I don't think. So I always insisted on fiber over Band-Aid solution, and it was a bit of a fight, but I guess I prevailed. I don't know. My side prevailed anyway. So, and I think that's really important. I think it's really important that we have fiber. And I think in the years to come, Huron County will really benefit from the fiber installation that we have here. We're actually have much faster speeds on a lot of cities now because, there's a lot of them that are still on copper connections.
Correct.
So I think the future is bright because of that. So anyways, hats off to Glenn for, how far the Warden caucus has come since my time there as Warden.
I could just follow up on that. Yeah, Jim and I were absolutely on the same page on that. And we had a lot of pressure that the way to do, as opposed to fiber, towers are much better, cheaper, we could do it. And Jim and I were very adamant. No, that is not what we will support. And we want fiber. And that did prevail. And it was not an easy conversation. And we're pestered and battered. And we knew what we felt in our hearts was the right thing. And it's that consistent messaging, as you said, Jim. And there's no question fiber's the right thing to do. Because now we're experiencing issues with cell coverage, towers. And, that is not something that WOWC and SWIFT have not considered. And because you get into some areas, you just get dropped. Well, the Bells and the Rogers really maybe don't have rural Ontario as their first priority. And there needs to be a strong voice in that regard.
Certainly being on the TCC board, that's all they talk about is SWIFT and what it's done. And it's drawn all those parties together as well. All those cooperatives have invested a lot of money.
Oh, yeah.
As well in the ground, right? So it's everybody coming together. Again, it's collaboration, cooperation. Everybody put a little money on the table and let's go get it done.
Absolutely.
So yes.
You're right. We couldn't have done it without the telecoms. Like they were at the table, and a person always has to think of the long game too. They're employed locally in our respective communities, and the money they make, they redistribute in our communities. It's a win-win. Young people employment.
Jobs. Yeah. Or comments, questions? Tina.
It's really interesting to hear how the caucus functions and
Mhm.
how what an important role it plays in collaborating with larger cities, but all across the government as well. So thank you for that.
Thanks, Tina. Something else I'd like to add, and I've been very, very fortunate, and I'd asked Andy Lennox from Wellington County as their warden to be my vice chair. And we'll all remember when the provincial government had the thought about, well, I'd say it was 9 months ago, that we should have opened it up for the severances on farmland in rural Ontario. And that was, we addressed it at Huron County, we addressed it at the Western Ontario Wardens Caucus. And I had reached out to Minister Thompson on that as Minister of Agriculture and Rural Affairs at that time. And Andy and I had had a conversation, and he said, we need to address this. And so he reached out to Matthew Ray, who was involved with municipal housing and affairs at that time, and also to the Speaker of the House, and said, we need to have a meeting. And we had a very, very frank meeting. And we put forward the position that that was not in the best interests of rural Ontario, and it was not acceptable. And we asked the provincial government to reverse that decision. And within 48 hours, that decision was reversed.
It's a great example.
A lot of people don't know that, however. And that was Andy. Andy set up the meeting, and we were very convicted in our approach, and it made sense. And that's the strength that the Western Ontario Wardens Caucus has. I would respect it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Nikki.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just a couple of comments. Thank you very much, Warden and Councillor Ginn, for giving us that background. I thought it was important that the board understood the existence and function of WOCI and how it attends to current issues. You can go online and look at their website and find out information about current activities. Chris and I participate in quarterly economic development meetings with staff across the WOCI area. And one of the other things that they are now looking at, in fact, a staff working group was convened this week, thanks to Chris, on transportation, because it's necessary. It's an ever-moving target, but we feel strongly that the current approach today, although great to pilot and look and see how it works, we really need a unified regional approach. And so we do work at the staff level as well, which we appreciate the opportunity to share best practices and meet with each other. And so WOWSI is also looking at transportation, and now we've formed a staff working group around transportation to have that discussion about how do we move forward regionally, because that ecosystem is evolving and changing quite rapidly, and we have high hopes for Ministry of Rural Affairs maybe being able to feed from staff to leadership and onto the provincial ministry that something needs to be attended to. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Anything else then? So we have a motion that chair and members.
Any other members' comments?
Oh, yes.
Sorry, you're right. The motion to accept the wording. My apologies.
Yep. So the chair and members of the Economic Development Board receive this report titled Western Ontario Wardens Caucus Overview, dated November 7th, 2024, as presented for information. Any more discussion? Moved by Jamie, seconded by Jason. All those in favor of the motion? Opposed? Carried. All right, so board member comments. Any other? Yep, Jim?
Yeah, just some of the earlier discussion just triggered this, but Central Huron and ACW have been promoting Balls Bridge. And I think people visiting that have really picked up. We put on our side down a guest book, basically, that people can sign. Absolutely fascinating to see where people are coming from.
Really?
There's been people from England and Australia, and British Columbia, all over the States. So I was just thinking, maybe when the season ends, maybe I'll bring this book in
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be
and
fabulous.
just pass it around so people
Yeah.
can see. But
Yeah.
I think it just highlights to me that what can happen when something is promoted,
Yep.
you know, and promoted outside our area. I had well, most people probably know Darrell Ball. Went down there one day, and I don't know if it was Thanksgiving weekend, but when the leaves were in full color, and he said there were 60 cars parked along the road of people going down there, and just you know, we've got such a beautiful river valley, and I've said this many times. Our problem is we just don't have a lot of access points
Right.
to it, you know, and that was beautiful. And I've been told that they put on a Halloween party for kids, and there was over 300 kids.
Wow.
And I can't verify that. I find it, I struggle to believe it, but I've been told that by more than one person. So, anyways, great asset in our county. But if you ever think, and I don't know if it's in here or not, but
We have pictures of it from this year
Yeah.
and we feature it on the website and
but just something you can do, and when you're visiting a winery or you know Blythe Theater or something else that's close, just another thing that people can do to make it a weekend.
Yeah, for sure. Very good.
Great comments. It's through you, Mr. Chair. It's one of those uh, amazing things to see, and people from around the world know more about it than we may think they do. So it is a great asset within our county.
Other board comments? Nothing else? Correspondence, I assume.
Tina, did you want to make a comment about Eat Local Huron?
I think now is the best time.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Just two things I think of note. One, if you don't know already, Eat Local Huron is having their open house for their new space in Goderich next Thursday. And I think they're running it from 12 to 8 p.m. Like it's a wide swath of time. So everybody can pop in and see. I know they're getting their internet installed. Well, they were supposed to get it installed yesterday. And, you know, it's run by, they have some staff, but a lot of volunteers as well. And they are really putting every effort they can into making it a great event for people to come out and not just to shop, but to see what they do and understand how it works and what it takes to distribute all this local food into the county. So that's next Thursday, if you're in town to go. And then next weekend is Christmas in Bayfield. So the Christmas lighting of the lights is 7 o'clock on Friday night. And it is stunning. I mean, spontaneously, you'll hear everybody in the park just go, wow. And there's so much applause and it's beautiful, especially the last couple of years. It's just stunning. And then the Santa Claus parade is 11 o'clock in the morning on Saturday. And that is a full village and then some turnout. So if you're looking for some things to do with family, it's just such a great event. So I wanted to make sure those two things were on our collective radar. Thank you for the time.
Yeah, thanks, Tina. The clerk just reminded me too that this will be our last economic development meeting where representatives from council could get shaken up. So I guess we'll find out come January how that impacts that one. Members.
There's this committee and there's an appointment at that meeting, which will identify your members. And in the meantime, you also have a recruitment committee.
Yeah, the selection committee is interviewing 6 candidates on the 18th and the 25th. All are very strong candidates. We're very pleased. And so in the January meeting, we will bring the 4 names forward that we feel will best serve the board for acceptance by the board. So that's well underway.
So then
January, it's going to be different in January and different in February or March, whatever your next meeting is. I can't remember.
January.
Yeah, but they won't be appointed by that.
Right.
So
They'll
your
be appointed
council members will be different, potentially will be different in January, and your committee members will potentially be different
in
the
I think
following
it's March. Yeah.
so we can assume that Vicky will still be here and Chris will be here and you'll be here. Like, you go around the room and
Just rather than all. Be nice to, you know,
The character, that's what it is.
guys know how kind I am to the warden. Just leave it at that.
Anyway, so we'll have some real changes, so
Have some interim.
however works, thank you
Yeah.
to the ones that aren't here in January when you're here today, so we'll roll with the punches as they show up. Yes.
Might suggest, Mr. Chair, that there's some unofficial beverage taking around Christmas time then, and we can celebrate those successes and contributions, depending on people's schedules.
We'll talk about what that would look like.
There is an agenda item coming up that may help support that. So
Oh,
Fantastic.
yep.
Okay.
that's the hint that get back on the. That's all. You didn't even kick me.
That's Susan's job.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, if I could just ask a question, and that would be of staff, that in the past, and I don't have the right wording for the event that happened down at Eddington's farm a year ago. And I don't think that event happened in 24. And what are the opinion as far as moving forward in the future for consideration of that and coaching of that and that sort of thing, just for the benefit of the board, without putting you on the spot.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So the best laid plans, we know don't always happen. And our plans for 2024 had been twofold. So we always feel it's important to celebrate harvest. And so the Feast on the Farm was the event at Eddington's that we did in conjunction with the Culinary Tourism Association. And we also put on an Oktoberfest last year. I'm not sure, remember, it was back to back. Staff was quite heroic.
Mm-hmm.
And so as we've spoken to council about and to the board, we like to get funding, start an event, then work alongside those who deliver the event, and then release the event to the community and assist where possible. So we had an Oktoberfest that was going to take place. It had been run fully by the county, run in conjunction with our wineries, breweries, and cidery the second year. And then a group from Bayfield had taken that on due to low ticket sales. That was unfortunately canceled. The other event that we had planned for this fall was through our sled programming, and dollars were given to the wineries, breweries, and cidery to form a group who were going to host a trade event that would also include a public component. So the idea being that they would the trade portion of the event would invite restaurants and food service organizations in the area, chef schools in the area, so Fanshawe, Stratford, and Conestoga, graduates to come and experience what we had on offer in the beverage sphere. And so that event has been now postponed to a spring event. With a bootlegger theme is what we're doing, so honoring the history of Huron County. And so we're looking, that will happen before March, and we don't have a specific date. So an ambitious project to organize a group formally and put on an event in a busy harvest season. And so a couple of weeks ago, we called it that it should move into a different season. And so that we will have carryover for sled from that project, but we will be delivering, we're anticipating February, early March, because we don't want to get involved with Maple Mania. We want to give both space. And Maple Mania has followed that program, incubate, cooperate, release, and is doing well. So So as a result, we didn't have a county or municipally led event, but we still had some very successful events. So for example, last weekend, Hessenland did Novemberfest. So celebrating Oktoberfest in the spirit of, but in November. And there have been other harvest celebrations, but it is our intent to continue with an annual harvest celebration because it is so important to the county. We've also been working on a tourism growth program, Taste of Huron Trail. And so initially that was also to be released this fall, but because the funding was announced quite late, it will be, its first animation and release will happen in the spring, but then we will be animating it throughout the season and especially next fall. So by animation on weekends, we will have different events that will take you to the farms on that trail, and different themes will be happening.
Thank you very much for that.
And welcome.
Okay. All right, so moving on to 9.1, we'll have Director Lass talk about the Economic Development Department update for September.
I'm just open for questions through you, Mr. Chair.
Sure. Well, I have a question. In that you've listed the starter company plus, and it seems to me there was an email that went out about an event at Ben Miller
Yes.
to do with that. And I believe members of the board were invited to attend if they wish.
They were, and it's item number 4, but it is December 11th from 9:30 to 11:30 at Ben Miller. And we ask that you RSVP by November the 29th, but it's an opportunity where you'll get to meet all of the starter company graduates, hear about their businesses, find out who was actually successful in getting grants. And we have more grant dollars this year, thanks to a top up by Ministry of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade, who helps to fund our small business center. And we're really excited about the quality of graduates this year. It's a really good group with a diverse set of businesses. So
Would you say the date is?
December the 11th. And it's a morning to lunchtime celebration.
So like
9:30 to 11:30.
30 to 11:30.
And we are inviting the board, and we ask that you just respond to our department, Ruth, by November 29th so that we have a head count.
Right.
But I believe the bar will be open.
I see.
In the morning?
Yeah, put your down.
Or you mean
After.
after? So it's possible to stay.
It is absolutely possible to stay.
Right. Right. Well, sorry for bumping you ahead on that.
That's absolutely okay.
Any other questions on the September 2024 report? All right, so we've got a motion. The chair, members of the Economic Development Board receive the report by Vicky Lass, Economic Development Director, dated November 7th, 2024, titled Economic Development Department September 2024 Update as presented for information. Can I have a mover and a seconder on that then? Moved by Tina, seconded by Past Warden Ginn. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. So then moving on to 9.2, tourism marketing partnerships.
So this through you, Mr. Chair, this was the first year that we used influencers, which is a common way to to get the message out about what Huron County has to offer. And so we had 3 influencers visit the county. Sorry, Lynn, my back is to you. We had 3 influencers visit the county and write articles and promote what we had on offer. We just wanted to share those with you. We felt they were very successful. We got a lot of positive feedback from them. And we will be doing the same again next year. And so we are hoping to engage 5 influencers to come to the county next year to, again, examine the assets we have, but also talk about the lifestyle we have on offer. And that also helps. We're actually using some of the phrasing out of these marketing or these articles to help form to put words around some of the data and statistics that will be going online to support workforce attraction. So again, defining who we are, defining our lifestyle. One of the articles I read, I got a real chuckle about was the influencer noted that they came across a full serve gas station. And it's like,
And didn't
it felt like they went back in time. And I went, oh, I guess so. I mean, I stop at one, that's religiously get my gas in Seaforth because the service is excellent and it's full serve. And it doesn't occur to me. They were referring to the one in Bayfield, which I also use because it's full serve. But, you know, it's so interesting to look at us from someone else's eyes.
Yeah.
And so we just wanted to share the articles with you because we thought they were very well done and we liked the outcome, and let you know that we will be continuing to do marketing in that vein in the future.
Yeah, password again.
Is there a cost to, I assume there is?
It costs about $1,500. We put them up in accommodation and we pay for their meals, basically. So,
Yeah.
I mean, at most, it's about 1,500, 12 to 15. So for 3 of them, I think our entire budget was $3,200. So if you think in comparison to buying an ad, for example, in a publication, it is money extremely well spent. And of course, we're working with people who have large followings and in a demographic that we're also looking to attract. So we can be pretty targeted. And I think the ones that are there that we did this year were quite successful. And our staff escort them, take them around, plan where they're going to go. So there is a lot of, it's not random. The staff put a lot of thought into curating the experiences. So we're highlighting again on that theme of we're agriculture, we're beaches, we're the environment, slow your roll. You know, that sort of theme is throughout all of our tourism marketing materials.
It's just incredible how effective that type of, you know, the Huron County name for it is called an advertorial. The local papers used to, you know, will write a article on your business and you pay a half rate for the ad or something. But when people read it, it just reads like the paper wrote it, which they did, and it was their decision to put it in, and it's great PR. It's because a lot of people look past the ads, right? This is really, you know, selling the sizzle. And when you read the one that was in the Sun, like damn it, I want to do that. So kind of thing. So it is very good.
We'll let you.
Yeah. Any more comments, questions on that too?
Just a quick one. I think it's wonderful. I think that there's a real move towards authenticity. Not that we ever moved away from it, and for the most part in Huron County, but especially with younger people, attracting them to the region. I mean, some people want to know, why can't I, when I see your website, why can't I click on your picture and get like your phone number and your email up right away? I mean, that's their gateway. So when they can see a real human being enjoying, and I thought that the curation by staff, again, was wonderful. Everything from the berry farm to the lavender farm to, you know, some of the more expected as well, but a lot of off the beaten path. I like the coastal coffee. I thought was nice. And oh, it was really well done. I forgot to mention the link to the bicycle one is broken.
Oh, okay.
And I was going to shoot you a note about that beforehand, so I apologize. But I fully support doing more of this in the future. I think it's terrific. But I do think that staff curation is really important. They do such a good job. Right? Everything from the publication to the curation, like they're really dialed in.
Yeah, and they're just so very thoughtful in continuing the theme each year. So we're not hopping around. We're being very intentional about this is who Huron County is. We're agriculture, we're clean water, beaches, we're stewardship, trails, forests, you know, and sort of this is who we are. And if this isn't what's attractive to you, great. But if it is what's attractive to you, come see us. So yeah, we're very pleased with the work that that line of business, well, that the whole department is doing. But yeah, there's real vision happening, which is great, and extends, as I said, extends across workforce, extends across all of our lines of business and the work that
it shows.
Any more comments? So motion there, the chair, members of the Economic Development Board receives the report, Tourism Marketing Partnerships by Vicky Loss, Director of Economic Development, dated November 7th, 2024, as presented for information. Have a mover and a seconder for that. Moved by Lynn, seconded by, was that Tina?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Warren McNeil.
Any more discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. So 9.3 succession planning workshop group update.
So again, Brittany sends her apologies through you, Mr. Chair. Brittany sends her apologies. She's at the moment right now in the first foodpreneur session. So our staff are learning as our attendees go through that first session. And I'm thrilled to say that we had 18 individuals sign up for this first round of foodpreneur. So excited. We thought that the first sign up might be small. But 18 is really thrilling. So she sends her apologies. I am here to answer any questions that you might have about the succession working group report. The group did have its first meeting, lots of really good discussion. They did the eco scan and look at possibilities, and more this is a big issue for all regions. But we really want to pay attention to this because we don't want our business community to suffer gaps and holes, and we're starting to see it. And so we want to make it clear that there are assists and supports, and the work of this group is important. So,
yeah, I can add. I mean, we had some very good discussion, and I would say it was a very good first meeting. So, yeah. Any more comments, questions? Yep, Jason.
It'd be nice to keep an inventory of businesses that come up and everything else too. I know us guys, we're looking to grow and expand, and sometimes there's synergy saying, you know what, like I've got extra space, this person's bowing out, maybe it makes sense to bring things together. So, and I know a lot of the information is very sensitive, but if there was maybe a discreet way of saying, you know what, like matchmaking or something like that, I think that'd be good for everybody. And I know even in our own company, I don't see any of my relatives taking on the company, but we basically setting up Class B shares so we can bring employees in over time. And we're like probably 20 years away from that, but we're thinking that far ahead.
Yeah.
But like if there was any way or means you could have some kind of an inventory saying, you know what, this is their plans, then maybe you see something come together and you can put two people together perhaps.
thank you. And through you, Mr. Chair, the working group is looking at how can we do that? How can we have that matchmaking role? And in addition to that, the team with Chris and Brittany leading it have been exploring CRMs. We had a CRM, it was US based. It had some issues. So we dropped it, kept the data, and now we found one that we feel will serve us better. So within that CRM, we can also keep those notes and completely private because it's just within the department for access. So we're moving forward on a couple of fronts because we too believe that would be really useful. At the same time, we need to get the message out to the community that we're doing that kind of work because you may have noticed in the reports, the Small Business Enterprise Center, we have adjusted its name to be the Huron Business Center. And that's because it's not just small business. And we want to think of all businesses, helping them to understand that we have something to offer. And also succession planning has never actually really been part of the provincial mandate. And we've had conversations with the province to let them know that it is a really important part of what we need to be doing. And they're coming on board with that. And we're looking at changing the metrics, which were always business startups. And we need to count expansions, we need to count stability, and we need to count succession planning. And so lots of moving parts, but it's really great to get that group moving. And if I may, just to let you know, the farm succession planning work that we did, we have entered that project into the EDCO Awards. So we put our names forward for an award. We'll find out in February if we were successful with that or not. So it was very unique for a municipal government to head a project like that. So that was, one of our first steps into succession planning just in the ag sector, but now we're moving into work for all businesses. So thank you.
Great. Any more comments? If not, then we will look at the motion here, that the Huron County Economic Development Board accepts the report by Brittany Wise, Huron Business Center Manager, dated November 7th, 2024, titled Succession Planning Workshop Group Update for Information. Can I have a mover and a seconder for that then? Yep. sworn in. Jamie? Any more discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. So moving on to 9.4, seeing as I jumped the gun there, is it just a
good.
case of just accepting that recommended motion, Ms. Clerk?
Sure, if you're ready, if there's no more
If there,
discussion.
Any more
Anyone can move a motion anytime they're ready.
I thought you were going to say to adjourn or something.
You can do
You
that.
can do that.
When the meeting's done and over, but you do need a seconder according to.
So Jamie was moving the motion that circulated in the agenda. Can I have a seconder? Tina? Any more discussion on that? Then we will call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. So moving on to 9.5, supporting local youth program overview. Who has the opportunity to do that? Okay.
So Rick couldn't be with us today, but he did write the report. We have launched the Supporting Local Youth program. The press release went out late last week. I actually did the first interview yesterday with Bob Montgomery. We've had a lot of interest in the program. And so it is out in the public, and we're eagerly anticipating applications. So we've had some phone calls with questions as well. So within the report, you'll see the details. We're looking at this as a pilot. And in the proposed, in our proposed budget for next year, we have earmarked dollars to do it again should the pilot be successful. So just wanted to let you know that's where we stand. If there are any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them.
Any questions, comments? Okay, being none, then the motion we have here, the Huron County Economic Development Board accepts the report by Rick Sickinger dated November 7th, 2024, titled Supporting Local Youth Program Overview for Information. Can I have a mover and a seconder for that then?
Happy to move that.
Moved by the Warden, seconded by Tina. Any more discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. So that gets us through.
Yes, do you want a minute?
Great. Yes, please.
Which is my absolute command.
So Mark is online.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Look at that.
Hi, Mark.
Good morning. It's been interesting listening to the discussion today.
All right, so English language classes for newcomers in Canada. Pilot project update. Mark, we'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, so we've been in discussion with Set 7, and we have more discussion planned for later this afternoon to work out a budget. But you can see in the document provided that there is some cost analysis and a budget set forth for running those English language classes.
So any questions?
Any questions for Mark then going through that budget? Yeah.
Just the funding for this all comes from the federal.
This is what you funded through you, Mr. Chair. This is what you funded through the board at our last meeting. You agreed to fund the English language classes because they were a gap in what IRCC could provide.
Okay.
So at that time, we asked board member Tina Bax asked for more details on what that funding looked like, a breakdown. And so this is the response to those questions from the board. So thank you.
I think there was a question as to something they're pricing offered online versus what we were looking at, right?
I think it was the cost of, I thought it was something about transportation.
There were some costs that weren't understood and the actual breakdown looking at more details. So it has actually If I may, Mark, it has actually brought forward some very interesting conversation and items that we had to iron, that Mark is working to iron out through multiple conversations. So we appreciate his diligence on making sure this happens. And we actually appreciate the question very much, so that was all taken care of ahead of time.
Super.
Thank you.
Looks good. Thank you.
Any more questions or concerns on that then? All right, well, if there's none, then we've got a motion. The Huron County Economic Development Board accepts a report by Mark Noakes dated November 7th, 2024, titled English Language Classes for Newcomers to Canada Pilot Project Update as presented for information. Come a mover and a seconder, Password Ginn and Tina. Any more questions? We'll move the question then. All those in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you, Mark, for bringing that back to us. Appreciate it. Okay, then we're moving on to 10, which is the financial statements. Any questions on the financial statements?
If I may, through you, Mr.
Yeah,
Chair, just an update for the board. Last year, we were in the enviable position that all of our SLED projects actually wrapped up within the year, and we didn't have to do any carry forward. This year, we're anticipating 26,000 being carried forward. So one is the Wineries and Breweries project, which we spoke about a bit earlier, shifting to the first part of next year. In other cases, we had a change of staff at the Exeter BIA, and so that project is a bit behind. So there will be a partial carryover there. And then some smaller amounts, difficulties with partners not getting back to individuals to be able to implement plans. So there's 1,000 or two here and there. So there's about 4 projects that will have dollars carried forward, but they anticipate completing all of those projects by the end of March of next year. So just so you're aware, we will have a $26,000 carry forward. That's the estimate at this time. We will have a carry forward this year for SLED, but most of the projects are on time and on task. And so we're happy about that.
Okay, anybody have any questions?
Just a comment, if I may. I'm in the Manufacturing Association, and they started their health and safety training, and it's actually going quite well. I'm actually in contact with the facilitator. I take Spanish lessons every week in Bayfield. She teaches them there, so we talked a bit about that, and it's getting some momentum. So if you know any businesses in the area that need those services, I know all of our employees are enrolled in it. But certainly feel free to pass the word out amongst the area. And it's all in the reach at Clinton.
Yes,
Okay.
if I may, through you, Mr.
Yes.
Chair, that went out in our business newsletter, which I believe was just circulated at the first of this month. And we have it out on our socials as well, circulating it so that we're promoting those courses, because they're really, it's really nice to have them delivered in the county. And the coordination was between the HMA. They've done a wonderful job at it, and they've worked closely with the Technical Training Group, or TTG, which also does pre-apprenticeship training in the county. So it's nice to be able to partner a little bit further with them and the HMA. So we're very pleased with that project as well.
Thank you.
More than welcome.
Yeah, I think just looking at the financial statements and the budget, I mean, we're certainly, I think, doing well, staying within the guardrails, and I'm sure the members of council are appreciative of what we're doing with that. So if there are no other questions, we have a well-crafted recommended motion here. The Economic Development Board receives a financial statement for the month ending September 30th, 2024, as presented for information. Can I have a mover and a seconder for that? Moved by Tina, seconded by Password Ginn. Any more discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. So that is 10. Close to the public session, I believe we have none. Future meeting topics. Anybody have any thoughts?
Yeah, one.
Yeah, Tina.
Something we don't talk about a lot, and just maybe in the parking lot for a future discussion is, we talk a lot about the need for housing. We also I think a lot of you live it. We don't talk a lot about it, but this, when we lose farmers and we lose people when we lose farmland, they're lost typically forever. So sometimes I think there's a stress between, hey, I've got some property and it sits inside of an agricultural pocket. I should build houses. Well, no, we think you should maybe do some farming. And, so I rent out my whatever, 10 acres and it's, $1,000 a year or whatever it gets me. So I think there's sometimes some tension between housing development and ag use of land. And I think for us, that would be maybe an interesting discussion to have just in the future.
Well, it's certainly a stress, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's something I think as elected members think about every day is that challenge. And we're not living it like just drive down Hydro Line to Stratford,
Yeah.
right? That road's been blocked off. I mean, it's just on both sides of the road. And that's good agricultural land.
Yeah. And so how do we as an economic development board support
Yeah.
the development of housing, but also support the preservation of agricultural activities and farming skills?
Maybe an opportunity to collaborate with the planning department as well in terms of if they're looking at their official plans and
Yeah, that's really
Yeah, that's actually a topic that we're discussing also at the Western Ontario Wardens Economic Development Board. There's a presentation, I believe, next Friday. We'll be discussing that. If there's interesting stuff there, I can get it forwarded to this committee.
Yeah.
We'll see where it goes, but
Great. And also through you, Mr. Warden, on Friday night, I attended the Huron County Federation of Agricultural AGM, along with a number of the county councillors. And we had a very interesting presentation from Dr. Sarah Epp from the University of Guelph, and she spoke on this topic. So we're losing 319 acres of prime or of agricultural land on a daily basis right now within the province. Interestingly, she and her team are gathering statistics on land that has been converted out of AG1 or from agriculture to other use through official plan amendments. In the first phase of that, she showed us statistics where from 2000 to 2017, only 25 acres in Huron County were converted from agriculture to another use through an official plan amendment. They're now working on 2018 through to 2024, but they don't have those statistics right now. But when we compare that, some of our neighbors were 300, 800 converted under an official plan. So Huron County is, as always, is cognizant that we are agriculture and working on it. But I think those statistics are very interesting. So we might even, once I hear what your presentation was, we might even invite Dr. App to speak to us because the work she's doing is quite interesting.
Great.
And to learn more about what we see happening across the countryside. So for example, a lot of the farmland we see being converted into subdivisions right now, it was rezoned in the 1970s and 80s. And at the time that was seen as the right thing to do. And so those decisions were made long ago, but we're just seeing the conversion now as population is growing. So if the board is interested, we can certainly look to bringing information back to get a sense of the landscape of what's happening and how it relates to Huron County and those who are directly involved with those pressures and what that looks like. Yeah.
Thanks.
Well, and I mean, kind of following up on that, and I don't even know how you would handle it as a meeting topic, but a friend of mine has just stepped down as mayor of Caledon, and he was telling me how the challenge with the green belt as it relates to the province, and let's face it, I mean, the province kind of made a mess of that. But the challenge is now because everybody's putting their feet to the fire and saying the green belt stays absolutely as is, all the development is leapfrogging out past the green belt. You guys are likely more aware of this than I am, but all of a sudden the towns that are outside of the GTA past the green belt, the provincial government's now telling them, okay, now you need to find a way to house 10,000 more people, whether it's the town Arthur and we're still catching the waves of that. right? And people are moving out. And so we're all being faced with the agriculture versus where are we going to put these houses? And I don't even know how you'd tackle that as a topic, but I mean, it sure weighs heavy on me after he went through it with me and explained it, how that green belt, the repercussions of all of that.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I will give that some thought.
Okay. Sounds good.
It's very similar to the drive until you qualify phenomena that we saw in
Yes.
housing,
Yes.
where people moved out of larger urban areas and they traveled till they could qualify for a mortgage, which really put pressure out on the outlying rural areas to provide that housing. And it also skyrocketed our prices in some respects. So it's a really interesting conversation about the pressures that come along with development, farmland, preservation of farmland, and trends in the purchase of farmland acres. So there's also the trend in succession planning where farms are being sold to investment funds. And that gives me a lot of, that causes me a lot of concern.
Yeah. Well, and certainly, oh, sorry, Jamie.
You know, these kind of discussions just trigger to me the importance of good, solid, consistent decision-making processes instead of knee-jerk reactions, so you don't end up with these unintended consequences.
Right.
I think we just always have to be thinking, what's the unintended consequences? How do I mitigate that?
Yeah.
It's good, solid, consistent decisions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and how it shows up 20 and 30 years later, not
Which
2
is
years.
which is what we're seeing in this case.
Exactly. Yeah.
So give that some.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting.
Yeah, there's a couple things, thoughts that all this discussion triggers in my mind. And a friend of mine, his daughter lives in the city. I'll just call it the city, and in an apartment building. You know, and the apartment building has, you know, an exercise room. It's got a swimming pool. It's got all the amenities. So I think part of it is making apartment living more desirable for people. You know, we got to get away from this single detached home,
Right.
because that just eats up farmland, right? So I think that's one thing we need to promote. Some, not this committee, but you know, as a population, we need to promote in Ontario. And the second thing, one that really drives me nuts, is brownfield. You know, a new business comes in, they always want to go to a greenfield because it's cheaper, right? And it's like we've got brownfields sitting out there that are taking up space and contributing nothing to.
Right.
There's a few down in London now. One I was pretty familiar with because my brother-in-law used to work there. It used to be McCormick's Cookies, and now they've got and I've never been in it, but it's I don't know, like I'm going to call it like a ninja workout place, you know, where you can go in and do some of this other kind of stuff. And those are the things we need to really promote, so that we're reusing stuff that's been taken out of agriculture already, rather than constantly eating up farmland.
Well, and the other challenge I see just coming from Europe and Germany, the Netherlands, like 70% of the population rent. They don't own. And how long can us as North Americans hang on to our hats that everybody has the right to own their own home and have their little bit of sliver of grass to cut? And that's a whole, you know, topic and challenge in itself, right? How do we deal with that? Because I'm not sure what we're doing is sustainable. But anyway, that's lots of other topics for discussion down the road.
Noted.
Any other meeting topics? Yeah,
I just think back to land. I think land is the new gold. The values, like you look at the stock market ourselves too, we put money in real estate, and that was better than any investment we could have ever done. I think there's a lot of land that could be developed, but I think it costs so much to develop. And if the municipalities or governments could give some abatement or incentive, there could be a lot of land that's, I don't know, just driving around the countryside, there's vacant properties. Why can't we, you know, I think if you can build a bridge between people that own land and the municipalities, there's probably room to do some business.
Good point. Good point.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Just a comment, and I don't know, just leave it to staff as to how they could orchestrate it. And I'm thinking through economic development, the communication of how many opportunities that there are in our area for employment. And when I think of Bruce Power and the way that there are so many employment opportunities there for, I will term youth attraction back into Huron County. And it doesn't matter in what your interests are. There are employment opportunities. When, and I was up to an NI Connectrix presentation a week or two ago, and I will suggest that we've never had as many employment opportunities in our area. And I realize Bruce Powers in Bruce County. However, the residents that can live here and work there and bring the money back to the community of Huron County. And I don't know what our staff could do to just have a discussion or to facilitate that discussion, because I think in a lot of ways communication is so important. And there may have been a time in the past that the youth went to universities outside of Huron County, as they still do, and had to go to other areas for employment. That is not the case now. They can come back to Huron County and have access to really, really interesting, exciting employment and live in the lifestyle of Huron County and contribute to our economy. So just a comment.
Well said.
Through you, Mr.
Yes.
Chair. Just to note that as part of the workforce project that we've been doing with our joint funding from RED, we're doing our second series of podcasts around workforce. And one of the most recent one that was recorded was with 3 local youth who have returned to job opportunities, talking about why they made that decision, the opportunities that were here, the availability of work. So we haven't covered it. We're not finished, but just to let you know that we are releasing those. We are recording and will be releasing a series on workforce. The first of which was actually recorded at our Thrive Summit, and it was a number of employers talking about how to attract and retain staff. So we're looking forward to that series being released completely. Another one of the podcasts was with people who retired here and then have looked for employment opportunities as sort of something to do in their retirement and the value they bring to the community. So again, interviewing people who are relatively new to Huron County, but have taken up positions that are available in the county that aren't full-time, and the value that that brings. So that series is going to slowly be released over the next few months, just so that you're aware. And we're looking at doing more work with youth on workforce as well, because they really don't know what's available in their community. Some of them don't even know what their parents do, which, I always found that my children's peers, when they were teenagers in high school, they didn't know what their parents did unless they farmed, and then they knew all too well and weren't always enamored. So,
and the potential for future vineyards within Huron County is just phenomenal.
Yeah, Jason.
I know I'm part of an alumni association. Anyone that typically went to post-secondary is part of one, I'm sure. But I mean, if we could somehow communicate with people once they leave the county, and then they know what's going on, and keep them in the loop of what's going on, that might be an opportunity too, rather than they leave, they never come back. It might be nice to, I don't know, somehow reach out to them or connect to them. We could have a newsletter or something. I'm not sure, but it might be a step to kind of keep people in the loop.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
Similar to an alumni association, those people have a lot in common.
Yeah.
That's very cool. I like that.
through you, Mr. Chair, there is an example of one county that actually sends season's greetings every December to grads who are away at post-secondary. And in that letter, they note opportunities that are evolving within the county.
Hmm.
And it has worked very well for youth reattraction and or connection. So with youth being one of council priorities, we are looking at ways that we can engage, encourage, and also with communication being one of our 4 priorities in our current strategic plan. This year, we're really concentrating on how can we communicate better and more effectively, and what does that look like? So no magic bullets yet, but we appreciate the discussion because it helps to prompt discussion in the department.
Good. Great. Moving on then, our next meeting will be held on January the 9th at 9 a.m. right here. I guess we'll put all the names in a hat and shake them up and see who shows up. Again, thank you. That's not how it's done?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Good. So we have an adjournment motion to wrap up the meeting. Wait a second.
And doesn't want to do it because I'm late.
Yeah.
Going to the retirement.
Right. We'll call the question on all those in favor. Opposed? Carried. Thank you, everyone, for, I thought, a very good meeting.
Productive. Thank you.
So food for thought. Appreciate everybody's participation, and thank you to the ones that won't be here at the next meeting, including Jason. And and then, yeah. Thanks, Lynn, for attending. Hope you get more mobile.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Yep,
Yeah.
getting there.
All right.
Great.
Thank you.
Take care.